America, and welcome to the 2019-2020 National Economics Debate. I'm your co-host, Mr. Cordsmere.
Yes, hello. I'm Mr. Conan O'Brien. We certainly have a special treat for you all tonight. We will be discussing topics with Mr. Classic Howland, Mr. Keynesian.
Sure to be very entertaining, Mr. O'Brien.
Absolutely.
And before we pan to the candidates, I'd like to personally thank Adidas
Oh, and Nationwide, who is always on your side.
for sponsoring tonight's event. Shall we move to the candidates?
I think we shall. Let's begin.
Good evening, America. I'm Mr. Classical.
And I'm Mr. Keynesian. Thank you all for joining us.
No, thank you, America, for joining us.
Hello, candidates. Mr. Classical, we are going to begin tonight with you. I would like to talk to you about your economic theory.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. I would love to share with America that I feel our economy should be very classical. I've been raised in a very classical environment and therefore think that our economy should also be classical. You see, I personally like to focus on the long run.
In the long run, everyone is dead.
Mr. Keynesian, please.
Now, candidates, please settle down. Mr. Keynesian, you will have your time to talk.
As I was saying, I believe that the government should not interfere in our economy, that our output will not change. Change in aggregate demand will not change output or real GDP, even in the short run, because prices of resources or wages are flexible.
So I see I am going to open up the debate for Mr. Keynesian now.
Mr. Keynesian, you seem very eager to comment on what Mr. Classical said.
Well, yes, I would just like to justify my means by saying that what Mr. Classical is saying is that in the long run, everything will work itself out. Now, I don't play in child's land. I know that is not true. You see, in the long run, everyone is dead. Now, Americans who are watching, I would like for all of you to take a moment and think. Would you like your kids to have food today or any years from
What
now?
kind of question is that, Keynesian? Of course I want children to be fed.
Right, but you are speaking in the long run. I am
Mr.
simply...
Classical, please refrain. Sorry, King.
No. I'm simply speaking in the long run. You see, a decrease in AD will lead to a recession because wages, unlike what Mr. Classical said, are not flexible.
Mr. Keynesian, do you really believe that if America's economy was in trouble, they would not allow prices to either inflate or deflate for the sake of their country?
You see, I am going to have to say no. No American out there wants a decrease in a wage when the government can simply intervene.
The government? Why, they've done a lot to help us. Let's just look at the national debt, shall we, Mr. Keynesian?
Well, you see, I focus on the short run because I do believe that we must focus on the now. Shall we take a look at the thought?
I think we shall look at the
Okay.
graphs. As you can tell, America, while looking at my graph, the classical, aggregate supply is stationary. Real GDP does not change, simply prices. Nothing that we can do will affect aggregate supply or the real GDP. The only shift that can occur is an increase in money supply, and that would simply cause inflation, which, in the long run, would work itself out.
I must say that an increase in aggregate demand does not cause inflation, as it puts no pressure on the prices. You see, in my L-shaped graph, it simply illustrates that aggregate demand does not affect price level, but rather real GDP. You see down here I have a thing called sticky wages. This prevents wages from falling and secures each American.
Mr. Keynesian, what evidence do you have to support this absurd, crazy theory that you're trying to scam our Americans into believing?
I will give you 3 words. The Great Depression.
Oh, the Great Depression? Are you kidding me?
You're making the cameraman upset. Calm yourself.
Oh, wow. Okay, let's pan back from that there. Wow.
That was quite
really
wild.
getting
Yeah.
into it.
I just want to briefly summarize that the classical does not want any government intervention, and the Keynesian perspective thinks that a
Clearly
fiscal
does.
policy needed is completely appropriate to have.
Fiscal policy, don't get me started.
Oh,
on
don't
fiscal
you dare.
start-
No.
Okay, America. Well, I think that's quite it for the debate.
Yes, thank you all for tuning in.
Yes, thank you, Adidas.
Please come back next time.
Yes, good evening.
No!